Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Kimball, Hawaii County Council Member for District 1 on Hawaii Island. Thank you all for joining us this evening for our webinar on envisioning the future of solid waste in Hawaii. I'm so pleased to bring some guests tonight. Ramsay Monsoor, the new Director for Environmental Management for Hawaii County, and Representative Nicole Lowen from District 6 on Hawaii Island. We'll give them a chance to introduce themselves in more detail in a moment, but I wanted to introduce you now to our questioners for this panel tonight. We have Corey Hardin from Sierra Club. Corey, I'm going to spotlight you. If you can introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your organization and your interest in this topic.
Yes, first, thanks, Heather, for setting this up. Sierra Club, of course, is a national organization. The motto is explore, enjoy, and protect the planet. And on the island, the group here has about 800 members. We do hikes when there's not a virus going on. We do trail upkeep, planting trees, and we do political action to help keep the environment protected. We meet the local group once a month on Zoom, and folks wanting to know more can visit the Sierra Club State of Hawaii website to find out more about when we meet and what we do. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Corey, for being here tonight. I'd now like to introduce Jennifer Navarra from Zero Waste Big Island. Jennifer?
Thank you. Thank you for having our group here today to be a part of this meeting. Zero Waste Big Island is a grassroots organization that promotes equitable waste reduction through advocacy and education. Prior to the pandemic, we did a lot more monthly meetings in Hilo and in Kona, and we also did outreach at Zero Waste events and festivals on the east side of the island. We've been in operation for about 2 years, and we have primarily a core group of 3 people that do the work for the group. We currently are more focused on advocacy since we can't do the more community-based outreach. So we do promote advocacy through a monthly newsletter and also through social media. We've also been participating in the Environmental Management Commission meetings since 2018 and giving some advice or testimony at those meetings. We're also currently promoting all the waste-related bills going through the state legislature on our social media outlets. And we've really been pushing for the idea that the county focus on organic waste diversion because it is such a large component of our waste stream. And we also have been advocating for a community-based network of composting facilities rather than the one large-scale facility in Keau. And the another component of our work is pushing also for a reuse distribution system for food that's packaged and served on island and moving away from a single-use system. Even the compostable single-use items have some of the same problems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to now pass it to Steve from Trail Rhythms. And Steve, I'm not even going to try to say your last name.
Thank you so much. It's pronounced Vinovich.
Vinovich.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight, and all of you. And thank you very much, Heather, for inviting me. My name's Steve Vinovich, and I'm a directing manager of Trail Rhythms. And we are heavy advocates for Leave No Trace. And what we do with this program, our mission is to inspire and empower people to protect waterways and to care for the earth for future generations. And how we do that is that we promote Leave No Trace ethics. And the way that we do that is we work with people in groups and camps and homeschoolers from ages 6 to seniors, seniors on up. So we have half-day camps to 8-day camps. and it's all hands-on. We teach the leave no trace ethics to these campers, as we call them. And we teach them basically how to help us and to help themselves, but mainly the camp is to teach them how to rappel into these gulches and waterways and haul out trash. And so it's quite a process to do that. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of gear to be used. There's a lot of knowledge to be had. But once they learn the leave no trace ethics, then we go into these gulches. We adopt a gulch and we pull out trash. We'll implore heavy equipment operators to haul out cars if needed. So there's a lot going on with what we do. I'm not going to really get into all the details of what we do, but that's the gist of what our goal is. And yeah, it's just a really amazing program to see somebody finish a leave no trace class or a camp and then walk out of there with a whole different mindset. But thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to hearing more.
Great, thank you, Steve. All right, I'm now going to introduce one of our keynote speakers tonight. So Ramsay Monsoor has disappeared for a moment. Ramsay, are you still there?
No, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Okay.
I just want to thank you for inviting me today to join your discussion, and I want to thank also Representative Lowen for the invite. My name is Ramsay Monsoor, and I'm the new appointed director for the Department of Environmental Management.
Ramsay,
And when the mayor,
Ramsay, before you go on, can you turn your video back on?
yeah, I'm sorry. Did I lose you in the video? Okay.
There you
Good.
go.
Yeah. So I came to the island just in December as I was appointed by Mayor Roth. And I was working as a division chief for the city and county of Honolulu. I was recruited by the city and the county, at least over the last 3 years. They tried to recruit me because of the issues that we're dealing with when it comes to wastewater. I come in with almost 30 plus years in the solid waste and the wastewater business, private and public sectors. I graduated from the University of Fresno in California with a degree in civil engineering. I'm licensed in the state of California and the state of Hawaii. And I also carry a certified wastewater operator certificate. And ironically, back in 1991, Kern County has transitioned from similar to a situation that what the island now here faces. Our landfills used to be free of charge, so we did not have any structure to set up fees to collect for waste. So people were driving from Los Angeles literally to use our facilities within the county. So we were given about 6 months prior to the fiscal year to set up a system to be able to collect fees, to be able to provide the services as solid waste disposal, recycling, and also be able to build a facility in compliance with Title 27 that came about in 1993. So hopefully with that experience, I could provide the county here with that vision that Mayor Roth has for the county. And which is, you know, he thrives. For the people of the county need to thrive in their life, work and play. And hopefully we could provide you also with a healthy environment when it comes to solid waste and wastewater. And that's about it for me. And I have my staff on board too. So if there's any other questions that they need to answer, they will be on standby.
Thank you so much, Ramsay and George and Greg. Greg, if you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll go to George.
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Greg Goodale. I'm the Solid Waste Division Chief for the County of Hawaii. And I've been with the county for going on 10 years now. I've been involved in, all aspects of the county's solid waste disposal, recycling, from the closure of different sites to the starting up of different programs. And yeah, so we're now working with Ramsay and the new administration and a lot of different initiatives and things going on. But yeah, thank you for having me on tonight's panel.
Thank you, Greg. And George?
Yeah, I'm George Hedesco. I'm the county's recycling coordinator. Again, Heather, thank you for having us and having this program. Before I came here, I had 30 years of experience as solid waste director in 3 other counties on mainland. So designing recycling programs, successful programs, solid waste programs, from waste energy to landfills to MRFs, material recovery facilities. So a lot of experience. We look forward to working with the community and definitely improving the programs that we already have.
Thank you so much, George. And finally, last but not least by any means, Representative Nicole Lowen. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and then also begin the conversation with a little discussion of the bill that you introduced this legislative session.
Sure, thank you. Hi, I'm Nicole Lowen. I'm the state representative for House District 6 on the Big Island, so I represent Kailua-Kona area. I want to especially thank Heather, who's the organizer and mastermind of this whole conversation. So thank you for including me in it, and I'm really happy to be here. I've been in the legislature. This is my 5th term, my 9th year. I've been a member of the Committee on Energy and Environmental Protection the whole time, and this past 3 years, I've been the chair of that committee. So solid waste management is one of those topics under the jurisdiction of that committee. And so I guess I'll start with a little background thoughts before I talk specifically about the bill. Over this past year and a half, maybe, we've gotten so many inquiries from constituents about the county's recycling program because they were forced to roll back on services, I think, based on their not getting bids on their contract. If that question comes up, I'll leave it to you guys from Waste Management to explain. But to me, the takeaway that I thought was really interesting is number one, people are really passionate about wanting to recycle and wanting to do right by the environment and conscious of the waste that they're producing and wanting to make sure that it's not just ending up in a landfill. And I think one of the things people often don't realize that I would like them to realize more is that recycling is not really an end-all be-all solution. So recycling is really important, but there's a lot of questions about our recycling stream, where it ends up, and if it's being shipped off to some country in Asia. There's questions about whether the environmental impact of that recycling program is really any better than if it just wound up in the landfill. So I think the takeaway more is that the individual action isn't enough alone, and that recycling was really promoted and sold, and there's a big PR campaign from plastic manufacturers to promote recycling back in the 70s and on to present times as a solution, like an end-all be-all solution to kind of help them sweep under the rug the problems they're creating and absolve themselves of being responsible for it. So that conversation, I mean, it's long overdue, but I think it's finally starting to shift, and that was part of the the impetus behind why we introduced this legislation this year. So this year we introduced House Bill 1316 relating to packaging, and it proposed what we call an EPR program for the state of Hawaii. EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. And without getting too much into the weeds and the details, the underlying idea is that producers are responsible for the packaging waste that they create. They have to be part of the solution. So this, would require them, we would establish benchmarks for percents they need to reach of reducing of recycling and reuse. And then producers can band together basically to form producer responsibility organizations that would could together figure out what are the solutions for recycling, and they would help to provide actually recycling services to local municipalities. And so what it would do would shift the cost off of just being on taxpayers and municipalities to producers. It would help provide a more unified, harmonized recycling program, which would reduce some of the confusion that we have. And then would also really provide an incentive for them going forward to rethink how they design, or what their business model is regarding plastics. If they're forced to be responsible for end of life of these products they put out in the world, then it's going to shift ultimately how they design those products and how much of them they do, and how they'll be better designed to be able to be reused or recycled. So basically this problem of source reduction, right? It can't just all be producing new stuff from virgin resources and recycling it as a solution. That doesn't really work. We have to look at source reduction, and to accomplish source reduction, we have to have the producers on board. There's not, I don't think, a really effective way to do it just all by ourselves. Sorry, I won't take too much longer. So this bill was actually part of an effort, and what I think is really interesting, part of an effort, an organization that I work with called the National Caucus of Environmental Legislators. So we had been having ongoing meetings over the past year, and we came up with a strategy to try to get as many people in as many states as possible to introduce EPR legislation, with the idea that we want to really push the industry to take notice and realize this discussion is happening. It's not going to go away, and to try to get some kind of unified effort to bring attention to this issue. And so I think that's actually been really successful. We've gotten a ton of coverage and a ton of conversation from it. And that was our fundamental goal, I think, this year, because it is a complicated program. It is going to take a lot of work with local counties and Department of Health to come up with something actually workable. And so we're in process of doing that. And then finally, I want to point out, going forward, it's not just about packaging waste. It's a model for how we should be thinking about all products, whether it is appliances or electronics or prescription drugs or household hazardous waste. Like, all of these things should have something built in where the manufacturer, the producer, and the people that profit from creating and selling these products are looped into also being responsible for how they're disposed of, especially when you're putting things out into the world that aren't, compostable, or just aren't organic, or things that are toxic and things like that. We have to just have better systems in place for dealing with them. So that's a conversation we've been having, and I'll stop there and look forward to everybody's questions.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for that introduction. I'm going to turn it first to Corey to ask the first question. Corey, you're muted.
Okay. I'd like to thank Nicole for introducing her bill for the extended producer responsibility, something that's long overdue. Been talking about it for a while. I wonder what people's thoughts are about a similar bill that was also introduced, Senate Bill 1419, regarding a municipal product stewardship program. And I'm not going to claim to understand this whole bill, but basically producers selling certain products in Hawaii need to have a stewardship plan to help pay for solid waste disposal and recycling, and funds from the plan would go directly to state, cities, and towns to cover costs. And I would be interested to hear people's thoughts. And I am, again, thank you, Nicole, for getting things going and writing up your bill.
Why don't we pass it first to Nicole, if you have some thoughts on the Senate bill, and then if we can have the folks from environmental management chime in.
Yeah, I think the contents of the bill are a little bit different and maybe not quite as detailed, but same idea. And I would imagine if it gets a hearing, if or when it gets a hearing, that the testimony on it would be largely similar to what we got on our bill, which was, pretty good support from counties and supportive of the intent from the state, but also with some concerns about details for how to implement it, concerns about Hawaii being a really small market. Like, it would be challenging for us to be the first mover on this kind of legislation. It would be a lot easier if we had a state like California or Washington go first to be able to piggyback on that effort. But yeah, as far as Senator Ocasio's bill goes, it's same idea, a little bit different, same idea. I imagine it will get the same kind of feedback from those who would submit testimony.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Anybody from environmental management have thoughts on this concept of shifting some of the responsibility for the life cycle of waste onto the producers?
This is Ramsay Monsoor. We actually supported the bill. We thought it was a great idea. At least that also will help us generate some revenues, because as you all know, the county's having difficulties in trying to find a way so we could fund our programs. So this is a bill that really creative, and I think we supported it, and hopefully it goes through so we could at least start implementing some of the programs.
Thank you, Ramsay. Greg or George, any thoughts from you on this?
Yeah, I agree with Representative Lowen and Ramsay. The one thing that I think that we would prefer moving into is the extended producer responsibility, where the producers are more responsible. Again, this is the right direction, but more on, again, the extended producer responsibility legislation.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and just, briefly, from the county standpoint, we have had plenty of discussions about these types of legislation. And, unfortunately, when we're looking at it from the county standpoint, we don't necessarily end up with enough of a power to affect some of the retailers in that way. So having it coming in from the state level, from our perspective, is definitely the right way for it to come about. But we definitely support the concept of EPR in multiple different products.
Great, thank
Yeah,
you.
can I
Yeah, go ahead, Nicole.
Sorry, and I think with the EPR, I mean, the solid waste management is primarily under county jurisdiction, but with the EPR program, there would be substantially increased administrative burden for the state, and that would also require additional positions for them. So when we passed the bill out of my committee, we actually amended it to turn it into a study, which was what DOH had requested. So I think everybody's really excited about moving forward, but we just still have work to do on hammering out the details of the actual implementation, which is always like the devil is in the details.
Great, thank you so much, Nicole. Jennifer, we'll go to you for the next question for our speakers.
Yes, thank you. So Ramsay already kind of touched on this, but one thing that's come up repeatedly as I've sat in on these Environmental Management Commission meetings is the lack of funding for solid waste management. And I know pay-as-you-throw was one suggested idea to generate revenue in the integrated solid waste management plan for the county. But I was just curious if DAM is already having discussions on ways to increase funding to the department.
Yes, definitely. This is Ramsay. Definitely, I guess I took on this challenge from day one I came into office, because it was like I was stating in my earlier statement. It kind of reminded me back in 1990 when I was brought in to assist Kern County in setting up their system. Pretty much they told me you got 6 months to finish 13 landfill and transfer stations and gate houses and scales, and because we're going to implement the gate fees July 1st because the landfill did not have any fees. So what we use the 218 process, Prop 218, which allowed for land use fee. So you charge a parcel certain amount of money to offset the cost for the service of landfilling and composting and recycling and even collection. So we were able to put this whole system within 6 months just to implement it, so we can start implementing the gate fees because we had none, which is kind of similar to here. You pretty much the service is given pretty much without fee collection, not even at the landfill and nor at the transfer station. So it was a challenge because Subtitle D came along in 1993, so we were under deadlines and what have you, but we were successful. And now it's one of the most successful department within Kern County is the solid waste division, because financially they were sustainable. They were able to build facilities. They were able to build programs, recycling, do the collection, the 3 container collections, and provide the services that everybody needs. And I think we could implement similar model here to the island of Hawaii, the Big Island. And I think I already have been in discussion with the mayor and our finance director on the possible, and even our corp council. I asked her to review Prop 218 and see the legal aspect of it, if it's could be potentially implemented here. If not, we looked at the Bay You Throw. That's also another option, or kind of sit a, sit a model like what we have in Europe, where, each communities have their own dumpsters and you end up paying for that service, but yet you allow the people that haul in the garbage, similar to what we have here, my understanding, which is we give residential credit to these people that bring the collected garbage into our landfills, but they end up charging the resident for that service. So we could expand that model to some extent to be able to generate revenue, to kind of be able to offset our costs, because right now we under the mercy of general fund. And it's pretty much kind of when you have a service that we want to provide, and our staff are working so hard to provide you with all the services that you guys need, from composting to recycling to services at the transfer station to green waste. But when they are told we don't have money to give you, we get in meetings trying to figure out, okay, how else we could provide the service. But it really ultimately comes down to the funding. And we have a lot of different ideas. We're going to continue working with the mayor's office and our new corp councils to figure out ways. And also, as you guys know, our deputy director, she used to be the state director for grants and funding. And she also trying to find us money through that venue.
Thank you, Ramsay. I think that I'm going to ask Steve to ask the next question, because I think he might have some feedback to what you've just said from the standpoint of, I think one of the concerns that's always been raised here about gate fees or some sort of fee associated with dumping trash is that means it ends up in other places where it doesn't belong, like the gulches. So Steve, do you have a question for Ramsay and Nicole?
Yes. First of all, guys, I really like the thought process of looking at models other than what's just going on here in the island, looking outside into other countries and into the United States, and looking at models that work. And I think that that's important to look at that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about Leave No Trace. When this is all said and done, just maybe take 10, 15 minutes and read about how Leave No Trace was started. It's pretty an amazing story. I think that my thought on this is that yeah, people consume these products, they consume these pieces of products from producers, but then is it really on the producer to monitor what consumers do with that product? So my thought process on this is somehow get out into the community of teaching a Leave No Trace concept. Again, I see these tangible things happen through these camps, and people's brains just explode with like overjoyed that, wow, we don't actually need to throw our stuff over here. There's things that we can do with it, like recycling or whatnot. So one of the issues that we have is that we pull tons and tons of trash out every couple of months. Tons of trash, truckloads of trash. It's just astonishing. And the DPW, the Department of Public Works, used to work with us and pick it up and take it to the transfer stations and the dumps. So they're not doing that anymore. They're not helping us. So when we take trailerfuls and truckloads of trash to the transfer stations or the dumps, we get charged a lot of money, or they won't let us dump them at the transfer stations. And I'm just kind of curious what your thought would be, what advice you could give us, and how we can mitigate this, because we're bringing you guys more trash. More is coming to you, you know, and we just want to know what to do with it.
So thank you, Steve. Ramsey and anyone else from environmental management, do you want to respond with how some of these community groups might be better able to work with you folks for cleaning up stuff that's already been deposited out there where it doesn't belong?
Yeah, I can chime in. You know, the county has a program, and matter of fact, I would strongly recommend you get in touch with our department. We do have what's called tipping fee waiver program, and there's actually several groups that make use of that for like different beach cleanups and the like. So we work with a lot of different groups, providing them with this tipping fee waiver program that, you know, ultimately is signed off by the mayor. But what it does is it basically allows groups to bring materials, you know, into, you know, primarily we try and get them to come into either the West Hawaii landfill or to the South Hilo reload facility. But, you know, they can bring that material in at no cost to the organization. You know, another group that actually also provides some services like that is the Matson Corporation has a program where they actually will take care of the disposal fees, and they actually donate money to the organization that's doing the cleanup. So you may want to even look into contacting the Matson Corporation for their program for cleanup programs.
Thank you so much, Greg. That's great information, and we'll make sure to share that out there with some of our other community groups. Nicole, did you have anything to weigh in on this particular issue? Anything about leave no trace, maybe how much that might be involved in state land, hiking trails and such?
Not really on top of what Ramsay already said. I mean, I would comment, like Steve, I noticed you said, you know, people are really excited to find out they can, you know, reduce what they use or do recycling. But I think the point I made at the very start was that's great and everyone should keep doing it. But the, you know, individual action, recycling alone is not the end all be all solution. We have to focus more on source reduction, number one. Number two, there's a tremendous amount of waste that is, you know, that what individual people throw away in their rubbish bin is a really small percent of like what actually goes into the landfill. So there's a lot like bigger issues to deal with also. So I think it's important just to remember that recycling is good, but the idea that we're going to get there to reach our goals of waste reduction through recycling is the myth that was sold to us by the plastic manufacturing and fossil fuel industry. And we have to like move beyond that. So,
and you know, I'd like to chime in on you know, kind of what Representative Lowen just said about, you know, myths. I think that pay-as-you-throw programs end up getting a bad rap from the public in that people tend to feel like that they're going to end up creating refuse out in the public, and you know, study after study shows that that's not the case. The people that are, you know, that are throwing these things into the places they shouldn't aren't doing it because there aren't places to take them. They're doing it because, you know, they have just decided that that's the easiest thing for them. It's the, you know, and that's things that I think needs to get out culturally and educationally to get people to stop engaging in that type of behavior. But I guess, as I said, you know, kind of a myth of pay-as-you-throw programs generating illegal dumping, because there's a lot of studies that show that that's simply not the case.
Thank you so much, Greg, for providing that clarification, because I think that is an important understanding for us to have. Moving on to the next question, Corey, back to you. Do you have a question?
Yeah, it used to be I could take my electronics to get repaired at a little place in Hilo, the little hole in the wall. They went out of business. Used to be there was a little place I could get my shoes repaired. They went out of business. And I was told when I wanted to get a radio fixed, the guy said, well, those are considered disposable. This is like $100 radio. So how can we increase repair services so we don't have all the stuff ending up in the dump? And also, is there a way to decrease the amount of stuff that cannot be repaired from even coming on the island?
Corey, for that question,
Yeah.
and pertinent to some of the other things that have been said, I always like to remind people that when we talk about the waste, it's always reduce, reuse, and then recycle. And they're in that order for a reason, because as Nicole was talking about, a lot of it is reducing the stuff that comes in, but also that opportunity to reuse, either reuse or repurpose, if you will, is an important part. So anybody have a response to Corey's question?
Yeah, this is Ramsay. I think maybe my staff could add to that, but I think this is a great question. All these manufacturers are driven by profit. Things have changed over time. Back in the old days, you could buy a dryer washer that could last you for a lifetime. Nowadays, they make it from these cheap material that you cannot even fix or repair because the material itself is falling apart. So definitely it goes back to the manufacturer. Could we change the mentality of the manufacturer and have them use a more lasting product? Because that's going to take away from their profit. So it's really, we dealt with a bad card to start with. So now we're buying these products. And sometimes it's cheaper to buy another one rather than repair it, because they make it so cheap for us that it's easier to go buy another one because it's cheaper than go pay $50 an hour for somebody to do the repair on it. So definitely, it's a great question. And it goes around to say, okay, maybe we need to start giving incentive to the repair shops and to allow them to reduce the price of repairing things versus us going buying new things, and make it difficult on these people that are producing these breakable, not lasting products, because that's what's happening. We're getting more of them going out to the landfills because it's all profit driven by these big manufacturers. I'll leave it to staff if they want to add any more.
I know Nicole wants to jump in real quick on this one. Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, we do see bills like at the legislature, like year after year, to pass like right to repair. That's a little bit different because that has to do with products that you lose the warranty on them if you try to repair them yourself. But outside of that, I think in more like economics terms, a lot of these products are designed these days, which I think has changed, from 20 years ago, even, especially longer. It's like they build in like planned obsolescence, where the expectation of the company is that there's an end of life of their product and then you'll have to buy a new one. It's a profitable model for them to keep selling you a new product, and even more so when they're not responsible for the externalities they create and all the waste that they create. So, I mean, the idea that end of life, especially for products like electronics or appliances or cars, like these large products that are an investment and should last a long time, the idea that they've kind of purposely engineered them or worried less about how long they last just because they know you're going to buy a new one, and because they're completely unaccountable for the waste they create and the financial burden that puts on taxpayers to deal with, how to deal with all this waste at the other end of it. So, I mean, it's like, I know I keep coming back to EPR. I don't know exactly what the model, it might be a little bit different for large appliances and stuff like that, but probably, even just as important for that. But by making producers responsible for that end of life of those products, which I think are even more challenging to deal with in certain ways, I think that would really push them to redesign them and go back to creating things that last longer, that can be repaired, or that you have some kind of subscription system. I mean, there's different options, but just throwing stuff away and making a new one, we just can't keep doing things that way.
Thank you, Nicole. Greg or George, do you have any thing you'd like to add to this particular response?
Yeah, we've been developing the Master Recycler Composting program, where we would go and educate volunteers on different aspects of our recycling and waste reduction programs. And this was one part of it, having the repair cafes. So trying to work with volunteers to establish these repair cafes, so we could do what's being discussed, actually have customers come in and have experts at the table. And this type of program that has been very successful in other locations, mainland and Europe. So we want to model after that. So that is currently being worked on with Zero Waste Big Island. They're helping us develop that master recycling composter program. Oh, and by the way, we definitely would need the legislation that Representative Lowen was talking about. We would need that right to repair, because once you open that product up, a lot of the warranties are void once that occurs. So we definitely would need that legislation.
Thank you so much, George. Greg, anything to add?
I think they said it all very well.
All right, thank you. We got a comment on the Facebook thread from Nicole Larson about a Fix-It program in San Mateo County. That sounds interesting, where they have clinics, even by Zoom, where they have coaches for folks to teach them how to fix electronics. So thank you, Nicole, for that. We will take that under advisement and look into it. I'm going to pass it on to Jennifer for the next question.
Yes, thank you. So lack of adequate staffing at DOH has been holding up issuing of permits for composting for many years. And now I've learned this about additional cuts to staffing. And they came out in opposition to one of the composting legislation moving through the legislature right now. And also, looks like most of the bills that are working through the legislature for compost are pretty stalled for this session. So, diverting organic waste is so crucial, and it's kind of the low hanging fruit of something that we can easily start diverting from the landfill. And it's an important resource. So I'm curious if there are things that we can do at the county level to help with the DOH staffing issues and the stalled legislation, and if possibly we could oversee some of those responsibilities of DOH at the county level.
Ramsay or anyone else from county, you want to take that first?
I'll give it a shot, and then I'll have some of my staff add to it too. It's unfortunate the Department of Health sometimes it controls what counties and cities need to do. And without them kind of delegating that authority, it's pretty hard to take it and run with it, because they may end up hitting us with fines and what have you. So Jennifer hit it right on. It's California, for example, they have all that mandated requirement where you have to divert organic food from landfill, and they give us a set date and time that all cities and counties must comply with. Unfortunately, even in the state of Hawaii here, we don't have any mandates that require the Department of Health to have the upper hammer on diversion of organic waste, or reduction of waste up to 25% or 75% or what have you. So, and that's why most of the counties, they go at ease, because they're not mandated in a sense by the Department of Health. And it's unfortunate, but for us to take the lead, I guess it goes back to funding. And it goes back to, we need to be funded enough with the funds that's going to be able to provide these programs. And it goes, it's in a cycle, a vicious cycle. It's the funding control, the things that we want to do and we love to do, and then you got regulatory agencies not taking on their role and moving forward with mandates and other things. So I'll leave it to my staff to add to it if they'd like to.
Thank you, Ramsay. Greg or George?
Well, fortunately, our green waste, the mulch program was a large component of our landfill diversion. It diverted in fiscal year 2020, 39,000 tons of material from the landfill, and it makes up 72% of the total landfill diversion program. So, the mulch operation is very successful. Now with the composting, we've been working with of the other counties, along with other composters and organizations, and meeting with the Department of Health on a tiered composting program. And we saw legislation come out, but that was sort of like the base of what we were working with. So we're still working on a modified legislation that, again, we're still working with the Department of Health on, that they would sort of support also. So there is action there with trying to, again, work with all the entities to get something that's workable. Another thing, talking about other municipalities, is the county of Kauai. They have very successful backyard composting operation, where they have classes that they give for the community and for individuals. They give out those recycling bins to individuals, and they've calculated that program costs about $6 per ton. So very successful program, diverting materials from the landfill, and it's done right at your home. So you're not spending the cost of transporting, you're not paying someone else to process it. Very successful. And we had a program very similar to that, but was discontinued. So maybe we need to look at that again and bring that program forward. Getting to the reduce, reuse, recycle, the reduce part of it. We were designing a reduce food waste program, but unfortunately, we just ended up postponing that because of funding. But that's something that's being worked on also. We would like to reach out to the community and try to rethink what we're doing and reducing the amount of food that we're generating.
Thank you so much, George. Greg, anything to add?
Off of what George, one thing I would like to I'd like to kind of plug that the last time the state of Hawaii's environmental program, that there's a surcharge that funds a better part of Department of Health's solid waste program, and it's been a little less than 10 years ago was the last time that there was anything even proposed to try and increase that surcharge that would give DOH, the chance to have additional staff and more funding, from their end. Currently, it's only at 35 cents a ton, and even when that legislation was attempted to go through about 10 years ago, it got shot down. And from our perspective, even as the generators of or the handlers of the waste, we would support seeing an increase to that surcharge that each of the counties pays to assist Department of Health.
Thank you, Greg. I'll pass it quickly to Nicole, if you want to chime in at all in this one and what you've seen going on with the legislature with composting bills this session.
Sure, we passed a couple of composting bills out of my committee, but I think they did die in subsequent committees already. And DOH did, we tried our best to fix them, but DOH had concerns, which I think is what caused them to die. I'm not sure what's coming over from the Senate. There might still be some vehicles we can work with, but yeah, I mean, I think funding is always an issue. Of course, right now the state has been particularly impacted by COVID because our revenues are like much more tourism based, whereas the counties are property tax, and everybody's reluctant, you know, to raise taxes, and people want to demand programs and services but don't want to pay more for them. I mean, this is just kind of a perennial issue that never goes away, but you know, there's probably opportunities to look at that surcharge at the state level, but there's you know, sources of revenue at state and county level that both could be looked at, and people are reluctant to do so for political reasons, I guess. But yeah, funding is always a challenge. I mean, in this year in particular, of course, at the state level, it's pretty much off the table. We're not increasing position counts and things like that.
Thank you, Nicole. Yes, it certainly continues to be a challenge finding some of the funding for these important programs that we all want to see, but that does bring back the EPR discussion a little bit, and some of the revenue that could come from something like that, and how that would be important. Steve, I'm going to pass it to you for one quick question. That'll be the last question, and then I'll give Nicole and Ramsay a chance to just make some closing, to give some closing thoughts. So Steve, quick question.
Excellent, thank you very much. First of all, I'm relatively new to being in a community like this with you folks, but I'm not new to what I see out on rock climbing areas and rappelling areas in my profession as a single pitch instructor. But I'm learning a lot here about that. My mission is a lot bigger than what I think it is, and it's just amazing what I'm learning today. I want to thank you for this. It's off of the subject of kind of what's been talked about, but really quick. I know that what I'm doing is a smaller picture of what's going on here, but still it's big when I look at it. And we have a large community of people that are working on what we do. And I just want to ask this question. What is the clear fact? What's the clear cut fact of who owns the waterways? You know, as we descend into these waterways with our gear and our rappelling gear and our crews, we sometimes have to pass private property areas, but yet we're still hauling out trash as we go along, getting them ready for helicopters to pull out or whatnot. But we're still in these waterways. And sometimes we'll get kind of flack about it. Other times we won't, but we just want to get a clear picture on who manages these things. Thank you.
I think that's probably a Nicole question.
I mean, as I understand it, I mean, it depends on who owns the land where the stream you're talking about is, but I believe, like, you know, streams can be privately owned if it's on land that's privately owned. If it borders, if it cuts two private properties, if it's a dividing line of two private properties, then it might be owned by both property owners and to some degree, but yeah, I'm not sure 100% if there's kind of like a jurisdictional issue on cleaning them up, because it is like an ecosystem resource also. So I don't know, I'd have to look into that further.
I think I could maybe chime in. Just waterways, usually it's by the federal, because anything, they call it the US waterways. So anything like a stream, river, flowing creeks, they fall under the, you know, under the United States waterways, which under the feds. So most of these waterways we have in Hawaii, it's really running rivers or major water streams. So it's my understanding they probably have the authority over that, but rather than the private entities that own the property, because they still have to be, they have to get permits. I believe the 404 permit, and they refer to them as the blue lines on the USGS maps. So if it's defined as a blue line, then it's part of the US waterways.
All right, thank you, Ramsay, for that. And so I think there's some follow-up to be done on that discussion there. I had one question come through on the Facebook chat I wanted to just share with you real quick, and this is probably a Greg or a George question. The question was, since we're not paying for recycling anymore as a county, where has that funding gone?
Well, quick, I mean, the county is paying for recycling. Unfortunately, two things happened with our recycling. We still do have funding. We have programs that are funded, such as the 2-bin program, which is the non-high five glass, and then the cardboard and brown paper bags. One thing that got reduced that was really more because of the market was the plastics and the other types of paper. So that wasn't anything, really at the time, it wasn't anything to do with county's funding of that program. Unfortunately now, due to reductions like with COVID, we have had to look at the possibility of reducing some of these things, but rather than doing any kind of reductions, we're instead, we're trying to work on getting other alternative funding sources so we can keep these things going. But I think that to say that, the county isn't funding recycling isn't necessarily true. The county does still fund quite a few different recycling programs. And I don't know if George wants to add on to what I said.
Yeah, I'm just going to elaborate what Greg just said. The good thing is on April 1st, we're going to be going out for proposals. So we're going to be putting out an RFP for our 2-bin or our drop, or you can call it our drop-off or recycling program. So that is going to be going out. So any recyclers who are out there that are interested in servicing the county for recycling, please take a look at that. But the base will be what Greg just said. The base will be that the provider will have to provide the corrugated cardboard, brown paper bag, the non-high five glass. On top of that, we do scrap metal. So scrap metal, you still have the metal cans that go in scrap metal. So we are doing that too. But as Greg indicated, the budget has been reduced, but it wasn't the primary reason when we reduced the recycling at that point. But currently, that part of the program has been reduced to some extent.
Thank you, Greg and George, for your response to that. All right, we just have a couple minutes left here. I'm going to pass it to Representative Lowen to just kind of give her your closing thoughts and let folks know how to reach out and continue this conversation if they'd like to follow up on any of the issues raised.
Sure, I'm getting a message on this and that my network bandwidth is low, so hopefully you guys can still hear and see me. Yeah, I mean, we're going to keep working on this. It's not an easy solution, and it's like a more comprehensive or cleaner way to approach it would be to have not necessarily like piecemeal state level or municipal level legislation, but if there was a comprehensive national approach to dealing with the problem. But we're going to keep pushing because we believe often states lead the way, and that's what we're trying to do here. So we'll keep working on it. Feel free to call my office, 586-8400, or email me at replowen@capital.hawaii.gov if you have further questions. I'd be happy to follow up. And thanks again, Heather, for setting this up.
Of course, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate all the work that you do in this area for our community. I'll pass it to Ramsay now for your final thoughts.
Yeah, first, thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to speak. And I think we definitely have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We live on an island surrounded by water. We need to be able to reduce, like you said, reduce, reuse, recycle to be sustainable. And that should be our motto every day. Every time we use a product, we need to rethink about purchasing that product. We need definitely to be able to combine our resources. We have so much resources between the wastewater and the solid waste, and we could combine them together to be able to reuse whatever we can out of them. The organic food could be great material for creating the nitrogen that we need for the green waste that has the carbon in it. And these two together will give us a great compost. So definitely we need to capture that, and we need to be able to put it to good use. So definitely we're going to continue on working better with our communities to be able to financially be able to secure all the recycling program, all the programs and the services they desire. Just be patient, work with us, and to a better environment and better life for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramsey. And I'll just say, folks, as a county council person, I've been able to listen to testimony from Ramsey on a couple of different issues, and this is a person who's very knowledgeable, number one, and very excited about solutions, and really takes a perspective of the whole ecosystem. And I think he's going to bring some creative ideas for us. Greg, did you have any final thoughts you wanted to share?
No, I think, the two said it very well, but I appreciate the opportunity and thank you so much for putting on this forum.
Thank you. And George, to you.
Yeah, I just want to say that also. Again, thank you very much for putting this on. And I assume we'll be doing this again sometime. Thank you.
I think we barely scratched the surface of things that folks wanted to talk about, and we had more questions tonight. I want to thank our question panelists, Corey Hardin from the Sierra Club, Jennifer Navarra from Zero Waste Big Island, and Steve Yovanovich. I think I said that right, from Trail Rhythms. Thank you guys for your time and all the effort you did put into formulating questions. And Nicole and Ramsey do have those, so hopefully you folks will be able to respond to those, but I think that there's probably going to be more opportunities for further discussions. I'm going to just open it up real quick to Corey, Jennifer, and Steve to just briefly let folks know how to find out more information about your organization. So Corey?
Yes, for Sierra Club, please visit the Sierra Club Hawaii website for the State Sierra Club, and that can tell you how to get to the Hawaii Island group. And thank you to Heather and everybody who presented tonight.
Thank you so much, Corey. And Jennifer, you want to talk about
Yes,
how
yes.
can people get in touch with you folks?
We have a Gmail at zerowastebigisland@gmail.com. And then we also have a Facebook and Instagram, which are also Zero Waste Big Island.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. And the Facebook page is a great resource for people that are looking for ways to purchase things that products that they regularly use that do have a zero waste footprint. So I definitely if you're on Facebook, definitely join that group. There's a lot of great information there. And then finally, Steve, if you just want to give a quick shout out how people can find out more about Trail Rhythms.
Okay, again, thank you everybody for having me tonight. So we can be reached at trailrhythms.com, and our email address is trailrhythmsinc@gmail.com. And yeah, check us out, and looking forward to continuing to take care of the INA.
Great, thank you so much, Steve, for being here. And I just want to make a final plug. Coming up in March, is it the 4th and 5th, Greg? I want to make sure I have that right. Is it the 3rd
Yeah.
and 5th? Yeah, sorry.
4th and 5th, yep.
4th and 5th, the mayor is going to have the Sustainability Summit. So it's something that is going to have a number of topic areas that will be covered, but I'm sure waste management will be included as well. Please go to the county website for more information about the summit and how to register to participate. Again, thank you everyone who participated as a questioner tonight, and thank you Representative Lowen, Ramsay Monsoor, Director of Environmental Management, for all of your time. Thank you for those who tuned in today, and have a happy and safe evening. Mahalo to all.
Yeah. Ahui ho.
Hello, bye.
Bye, thank you.